I'm Jeff Wagner in for Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, well, Summerfest became a victim of its own success when thousands of people showed up a week ago Saturday and waited hours to buy tickets. Ultimately, the police directed Summerfest officials to let people in for free, causing about 5,000 people to bum rush the gates. Miraculously, no one was seriously injured. Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn says that he wouldn't do anything differently in the future. In related news, the captain of the Titanic says a little bit of ice is nothing to worry about. The Fire and Police Commission announced this week that 3 Milwaukee police officers implicated in the death of Derek Williams will not have disciplinary action taken against them. This comes on the heels of decisions by both the special prosecutor and federal authorities not to bring criminal charges against the officers. Some people think justice isn't being done. Those people should perhaps wait to see the outcome of the inevitable civil lawsuit that I suspect will be forthcoming shortly. And finally, the Brewers season from you-know-where just gets worse and worse. In the latest piece of bad news, first baseman Corey Hart somehow injured his left knee while rehabbing his right knee and is now out for the season. With one key player after another injured this year, the most valuable member of the organization for 2013 is probably the trainer. How long is it until Packers training camp opens? But first this morning, we talk about the latest developments in the sex scandal involving the Catholic Church. Monday afternoon, thousands of previously sealed documents were made available to the public by the federal bankruptcy court. The documents don't necessarily plow new ground on the underlying allegations. They do, however, show that then Archbishop Dolan, apparently frustrated with delays in removing problem priests, offered as payments to the priests in order to get them to resign. The documents also show that now Cardinal Dolan authorized placing tens of millions of dollars from a cemetery fund in trust in order to protect the money from creditors, including victims of sexual abuse. So how devastating are these documents, and where does the church go from here? Now, joining me on our panel this morning, Milwaukee Community Journal's Michael Holt, State Senator Alberta Darling, Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan, and State Representative Jim Ott. Okay, Michael, let's start with you. First of all, how devastating are these documents?
Well, this has been going on for quite a while, but it's been actually out of the news. So when this hit, it was with a lot of fanfare. It's like you reopened the case. And now there are these perceptions about that they tried to hide money that would have gone to the victims. There's questions about why would you have to pay off a priest? Why can't you just fire him? There's also all this information about them shifting people and hiding them. I think this is going to be, at least in the short term, very devastating to the church.
Bob Donovan, does this hurt the legacy of Archbishop Dolan, now Cardinal Dolan?
Well, I don't think so, Jeff. I had the opportunity to get to know Cardinal Dolan when he was Archbishop in Milwaukee. Just a phenomenal individual. I have the utmost respect for him. I think he did the right thing as it goes with this cemetery fund. How you could explain to the people who contributed to that to maintain those cemeteries that, no, it's all gone. I think he did the right thing there. Is this going to be a challenge for the church? Absolutely. A big challenge, but I'm confident we'll get over it.
Now, Alberta, I had an opportunity to interview now Archbishop Listecki the other day, and he said, look, whatever had happened in the past, that they have new policies now. He is sure that there are no problem priests that are currently active. Has the church done all it needs to do to get past this?
Well, I'm extremely disappointed in the recent news, and I worked with Archbishop Dolan to create a Child Protection Act called Child Abuse Protection, and he worked with me on it, and he was very forthright, but this leads me to believe there's a lot more to tell, and I'm very disappointed, and I adore Cardinal Dolan, and I think it will tarnish his reputation.
Jim, one of the things I was thinking of is, obviously, one of the issues here is the decision to pay $10,000 or $20,000 to priests to get them to resign. Now, the story is that there is the equivalent of like a due process right that these priests have, and that clearly at the time Archbishop Dolan was frustrated. It was taking years and years to get that process going. So he said, look, if we can pay 10 or 20 grand to just get these people gone, it's worth it. Do you fault him for that?
Well, I don't know what else he was going to do. Apparently he wrote letters in some cases, and 4 or 5 years later he still did not get an answer from the Vatican on how to handle this. So I guess out of frustration that he did that, Jeff. And I'm glad the documents were released. You know, this is kind of a cloud been hanging over the church for a long time. We don't have like new cases of abuse that are happening today. Many of these go back 20 and 30 years. Terrible, terrible cases of abuse. But the thing is, the church has to finally deal with it and get it behind us. You know, I'm Catholic, and in my life I've known many, many wonderful priests, and many of them are saying Mass right now as we sit here. You know, they do anything for their parishioners, and they dedicate their life to God. They dedicate their life to bringing us closer to God, and that's the mission of the church. And the more we can, you know, get rid of this problem by fully disclosing and dealing with it, I think the quicker we can see the church get back to its main mission.
Well, that's somewhat of the problem, because now all the good priests, you know, they're somewhat tainted by this entire thing, aren't they?
That's the bad part. I think that so many good priests are going to get a bad reputation that's not deserved at all. We should applaud these priests for doing their service, and that's, to me, the tragedy of all this. I honestly think the Catholic Church has to allow priests and nuns to marry. I think we have to come into the 21st century. I think it would really help to bring in people who are healthier and are going to be more akin to how families deal with issues and would be more caring.
State Senator Alberta Darling.
I know.
Wow. You're just full of surprises right there. Okay, now this is our segment. What has your glass half full and what has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. We start with Michael Holtz.
Well, if you've been paying attention, I know you have, my glass is half full because gasoline prices have actually dropped nearly 30 cents a gallon over the last month. It's half empty because some problems in Egypt, they're about to skyrocket again.
So in other words, fill up right now. Alberta Darling.
Well, half full is because Wisconsin's moved up 20 spots in terms of prospects for economic development and growing jobs. That's great news. Half full, it would be we need to do a lot better, and we can.
Bob Donovan.
Well, Jeff, I would say it's half empty. Since we were talking about the church scandal, it's half empty because of that. But I believe it's also half full because Listecki, Dolan, and the new leadership here in Milwaukee and beyond are making the right moves to move beyond it.
Jim Ott.
Half full because I'm here with this esteemed panel this morning. Half empty because I don't get to join them every week.
Oh, that's so nice of you. And for me, my glass is half full because the weather over the 4th of July has been great. It's half empty because that means summer is about half over, and I'm not ready for it yet.
Me neither.
Next on Sunday Insight, the City of Milwaukee vows to keep fighting to keep city employees living in the city. Last Sunday, Governor Scott Walker signed a new state law into the budget. Over the strenuous, some might say hysterical objections of Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, the legislation did away with almost all residency restrictions. In response, the Milwaukee Common Council voted to challenge this provision in court. That's all well and good, but the Common Council went one step further and also directed department heads to continue to enforce the now invalid residency requirements. What this means when the first city employee decides to move out is unclear. Will he or she be subject to discipline, and will the taxpayers get stuck with the tab when that employee brings a lawsuit against the city? So what's going on with the Common Council, and what will the end of residency rules mean for the city of Milwaukee? Let's go right to the horse's mouth, Bob Donovan.
Okay. Well, Jeff, let me begin by saying this. Very simply, I have never had a problem with requiring city employees to live within the city. I think it makes good economic sense. We pay their salaries, so why not? If we can get away with it. Apparently, we can't now. Right. So let's leave this dead horse lie, okay? I have never, and ask Alberta or Jim, I have never seen an issue lobbied against harder or fought against harder than this residency, and we lost. Let's pick up the pieces and go on, because I fear the message that we're actually sending by continuing to fight this is the mayor and the majority of my colleagues actually believe that thousands and thousands and thousands of city employees, if given the opportunity, will move out of Milwaukee. What does that say about their confidence in their own city? And if they believe that, how about we roll up our sleeves and fix it so they would be a damn fool to want to move out of Milwaukee?
I agree with all that. What's amazing to me, Bob, though, is if the state law says you can't enforce residency rules, they're not there, it's one thing to challenge it in court. But how in the world, when that first employee moves out, are they seriously going to be disciplined?
Well, this was a big concern of mine because people may not be aware, they ought to be. As aldermen, we take an oath to uphold the state constitution. I can only assume those are duly enacted state laws are included in that. Yet we're ordering city employees to ignore that. We have disregarded our oath. It was a step I am certainly not willing to take, and but others.
Michael, what's going on?
Well, and I'm actually happy to see the city standing up, challenging this. They're talking about home rule, and I think if you initiate a lawsuit, you know, I'm not a lawyer. I just said Holiday Inn one time. You know, if there's a pending lawsuit, then the law would not go into effect during that particular time.
Well, only if you get an injunction.
I'm happy to see the mayor finally standing up.
Okay, Jim Ott, okay, you're part. Can you believe that they're going to seriously try to ignore the state law?
Yeah, I think I agree with Alderman Donovan. It's time to move on. It's done, and spending a lot of money to fight something that I don't see what the basis you would fight it on necessarily that would have a chance of being successful. You know, I understand why the mayor wants some of his, most well-employed employees to stay in the city. That's understandable. But the fact is, I think I have a little more confidence in Milwaukee's ability to attract people than the mayor, because I cannot see, say, a teacher or a firefighter or police officer who lives in the city now, likes their neighbors, like their home, that they're going to move out of the city just because they can. I can see, though, that someone, maybe a qualified teacher who would like to work for MPS, does not move into the city now because they don't want to move in order to get a job here. I think this will increase the labor pool.
Well, and Alberta, quickly, you can't move out until you sell your house. So
That's
there's going to have to be a buyer,
There's
right?
not going to, there won't be a mass exodus from Milwaukee. I've talked to realtors, cops, teachers, and firefighters. There's not going to be a mass exodus, and I think you're absolutely right. What does this say about Milwaukee, that you have to fence your people in? This is about freedom and allowing people to live in what I consider a very great city.
Well, I think one of the things, again, I have no issue at all if we're going to be in a situation where you want to challenge the lawsuit, you want to try to get an injunction, but if they're seriously going to just say, we're going to discipline employees who are following the law, that's all you're doing is creating a lot of work for plaintiffs, employment lawyers, and the city is going to lose that. Okay, you may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell it to you anyways. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Michael Holt.
Well, mine goes to the Archdiocese. A little less money on lawyers and a little more on PR.
Alberta Darling.
The Board of Regents better wake up and smell the coffee, because Margaret Farrow and Jan Mueller are going to be joining the Regents, and they're going to do a really good job of working for the taxpayer and the students.
Bob Donovan.
Surprisingly, Jeff, my advice goes to the mayor and the Common Council. We lost this residency fight. Let's suck it up and move on.
Jim Ott.
Sometimes I think if you want to find out where the fish are not biting, follow Jim Ott.
and my unsolicited advice, well, to NSA security leaker Ed Snowden, man up, come on back, face the music. Living in Bolivia as a fugitive probably isn't all it's cracked up to be. So, why did the Obama administration, coming up next on Sunday Insight, suddenly delay a huge and key part of Obamacare? The centerpiece of the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, was the so-called employer mandate. Effective next January 1st, most employers were to be required to either offer health insurance to all their employees who worked at least 30 hours a week or pay a penalty. In response, many employers have deferred hiring new employees and have cut back the hours of part-timers to well under 30 hours a week. Last Tuesday, the Obama administration stunned everyone by announcing that the employer mandate provisions of Obamacare were being delayed until January 1st, 2015. In other words, after the 2014 congressional elections. So what's going on here? Why the sudden reversal? And is it possible that as the lame duck Obama administration winds down, other aspects of Obamacare will be delayed or disappear. Alberta Darling.
Yes to all the above. It's about the elections, and no one wants to go out for the 14 elections having supported a terrible policy which is dismantling our healthcare system, which is going to cost more, and we have more people uninsured. So this is about the election in 14, and I think it's a very ill-designed policy, and this is just the beginning of the unraveling. This mandate and the next one is the 14 start for the exchanges. They're not going to be ready either.
Okay, Jim Ott, I mean, obviously, as the Obama administration winds down, you keep pushing these things back further and further. Is it possible we'll see more delays, not just for the employer mandate, but for other things?
We can only hope, I guess, Jeff. You know, and I guess how do you spell politics on this one? Very thinly veiled politics. I don't know that the philosophy here is that, like, if we wait until after 2014, you're going to vote us back into a majority in the Congress, and then when the hammer really comes down in 2015, you're going to have, what, forgotten about all that? So I think it was Nancy Pelosi said, we'll find out what's in the bill after we pass it, and it seems like as time goes on, we're finding out more and more bad news, and maybe that's one of the most accurate things she ever said.
Right. Michael Holt, is this politics pure and simple, or were there other reasons for it?
Well, it's politics. It's good politics, because then you can delay this criticism for next year's elections. But I think that, as the Obama administration said it, we have been talking with business owners, and we've been talking with the IRS. And it's very, very complicated procedures and new regulations. They said we could not do it in time. A fundamental change is saying that somebody working 30 hours a week is full time. I mean, that added a whole new category to this. Yeah. They didn't think they could get everything done by January, so they rightfully, it was a PR coup in many respects, to say we're going to delay this for a year.
Okay. Bob Donovan, I mean, is this the start of the end of Obamacare?
I think it could possibly be. And quite frankly, Jeff, I don't have a hell of a lot of faith in federal government getting anything right these days. And I think Obamacare is a prime example. I certainly never supported it. I mean, good idea, yes. Everyone wants to improve health care, but this approach, I think, went way overboard, and this latest effort just proves they don't have their ducks in order.
Well, you know, Jim Ott, I think you're exactly right when you talk about the reality is you can't put lipstick on a pig, and yet you can delay some of this to 2015, but people are going to like it any better in 2015 than they do now. So I think this could be the beginning of the end. Okay, is what they said this week what you heard? Let's go around the table. We start with Michael Holt.
I'm actually going back to something I heard on your show Wednesday, when some people were talking about this controversy over the construction of a new Walmart in New Berlin. Mm-hmm. Several people implied that it had to do with their fear of undesirables. I've heard that same thing about Jewel Oscars on the East Side and other Walmarts. Undesirable to me is a cold word. So what I heard was, I mean, you can figure out what I heard.
Alberta Darling.
Well, Mike Tate, the Democratic chairman, said that Governor Walker is extremely weak, and because of that, there'll be a great candidate arising for the 14 elections. They're polling and polling and polling, and they can't find any Tier 1 candidate. Governor Walker is doing really well, and we're going to do better.
Bob Donovan.
Well, I think we all heard from the media this last 4th of July was a very violent one. 5 separate shootings, 8 individuals shot. Yet, what I am confident we will hear from our elected officials here in Milwaukee is nothing to see here. Close your eyes, go home, stick your head in the sand, and join the rest of us in ignoring our real problems.
Jim Ott.
They said a chance of showers. I heard it was raining.
Okay. Now, Bucks restricted free agent guard Brandon Jennings says, what he says is, hey, I want to be part of the Bucks because I have unfinished business. What I heard was, back up the Brinks truck, pay me a boatload of money, and I'll come back to Milwaukee. Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. First, though, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Michael Holt, you're first.
One of the big losers is those who think that the scales of justice are really balanced. Against my better judgment, I've been watching this George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin case, and the more I watch it, the more I get the impression that he's not going to be convicted. So I deferred to something Jeff also said earlier in the week. They should charge Zimmerman with manslaughter instead of murder.
Alberta Darling.
My winners are the taxpayers of Wisconsin, who are going to get one of the largest tax cuts in the history of our state in this new budget. And my losers are the families and friends of the 19 firefighters who lost their lives in that horrible fire in Arizona.
Bob Donovan.
My winners are the residents of Milwaukee, who will soon be benefiting from a new surveillance camera initiative spearheaded by Alderman Murphy and myself. These cameras, I guarantee you, will go a long way in stabilizing some of our more challenged neighborhoods. And my losers, Jeff, unfortunately, is the mayor of the city of Milwaukee, Tom Barrett, who indeed may qualify as a nice guy, but who has failed over the last 9 years to provide this community with a vision, a plan, a strategy to address our mounting problems and move Milwaukee forward.
Tell us what you really think, Bob. Jim Ott.
Jeff, my loser, it was another in a series of bad weeks for the Affordable Care Act. How much worse can it get? My winner this week, Major Stephen R. Hurst. Major Hurst was an F-15 pilot who suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car accident. He has written an inspirational memoir to help others who have suffered such an injury. Last Thursday, he returned to Whitefish Bay and served as Grand Marshal of the Independence Day Parade.
And my losers this week are the folks who decided to go ahead and shoot off the fireworks on July 3rd despite dense fog. Here's a word for organizers to remember in the future: reschedule. My winner is Summerfest 2013. Great crowds, great bands, great food, and largely great weather. Despite a minor hiccup or two, Summerfest 2013, the total winner. Congratulations, Don Smiley. You did a great job. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.